Hello and welcome to what should be a very interesting North Bank podcast about the Arsenal City game from yesterday. I'm joined as ever by Stef, who was at the game.
Hello.
Hi, Stef. And Chris, welcome back.
Hello. My little pony, Stef, a little horse.
Is he a little horse? He is. Before we started recording, you boys asked me what the running order will be. And I tried to organise some structure to this podcast, but I really wasn't sure entirely where to start. So on the game itself, we can break the game down quite comfortably to team news, then the first 15-20 minutes. And after that, for the first half, we can almost go minute by minute. That much happened. And then the second half. But first, Steph, as ever, because you were at the game, I just always like to get a sense of the atmosphere. What was the feeling before kickoff? And if you want to incorporate like a reaction to the team news, which briefly I think there were two changes, Rice for Jorginho, obviously, and then the odd one, which was as a consequence of a very minor injury, obviously, to Ben White, where Calafiori came in and started at left back and Timber switched over to right back. So what was the sense in the ground, or approaching the ground, like towards the game itself, but also when the team news dropped? And no De Bruyne, obviously, in the City lineup.
Generally, everything was really quite positive. You know, we knew we had to bring our A game. There was a little hesitancy in overconfidence because A, it's City, and B, we'd just had a couple of fairly intense games already, beating Tottenham at their place and then going away to Italy and getting drawn only on the Thursday before. So, but generally everyone was really positive. You know, we're in a good place as a club, and so we knew that whatever happened and whatever lineup was out there, we were going to be on it and determined to try and get the best result that we could. So it was fine. Lineup wise, yeah, there was a bit of consternation, a bit of worry that White wasn't in the team, bit of confusion, and the fact that he was then on the bench, because obviously as fans, not always able to get the pre-match interviews and quotes coming through as quickly as you can on your phone. And so eventually everyone realised that he was carrying a knock. And ultimately everyone was also quite pleased that Calafiori and Timber, you know, it's hardly the most or the biggest step down. I'm not sure it's much of a step down at all. And that's not to denigrate Ben White. Ben White is phenomenal and I love everything he does. But Timber in these last few weeks really does look exceptional. He's a real athlete. He's a really good player in terms of his anticipation, and he's more than willing to get involved in terms of attack. Yeah, we've seen less of Calafiori, but you know, there are times when even he just looks really good and composed, and they're all big and they're all strong, and so
there's very little drop off, isn't there? It just feels
not
like
much of a drop off. We're getting there with that depth and that raised floor that we've mentioned this season.
Well, Timber's demonstrated exactly what we missed last season in the games he's played this season.
Yeah.
I was a little bit concerned when they named Doku and Savinho as wide wingers. I did think, because I know Calafiori is rumoured not to be the most pacey of defenders, and I was a little bit concerned about that matchup. Chris, how did you feel when the team news dropped? And
I was actually really pleased for the back line. I was really pleased for as Steph just mentioned, you know, the wealth of talent in the back line and very little drop off. So I was glad to see Calafiori get a start and Timber switch to the right, as he's very accustomed to. And the rest of it kind of followed the setup that I thought we would go with, which was that kind of box again with the two wide guys dropping back. So pretty positive, really.
Okay.
How did you feel about that?
I was a little bit concerned that we'd miss Ben White's know-how. And by know-how, you know what I mean. And then I must admit, then when I saw Rodri kind of step into the path of Havertz after 5 seconds, I was even more concerned that Ben White wasn't in the team, because I figured, well, if this is the game City are going to aim for, well, then Ben White is a chief protagonist of that type of game, and we might miss him.
How wrong you were.
Turns out we've got about 11 S houses as well.
I mean, there is an awful lot to be proud of yesterday's performance and the team, and that definitely is that. Like, I've seen it described as the dark arts. Like, what on earth did people want us to do there? You know.
Also, bit bloody hypocritical, isn't it? Coming from City, dark arts with your rotational fouling, and you're jumping around on the floor, and you're surrounding the referees and trying to wind them up. Calm. We were saying just before we came on, I don't know how to approach this, because I don't want to turn into someone who's just ranting and raving. I really want to focus on all the positives that we've got, but there's a place for such
that.
a triggering game.
This is a safe forum for you to express these rants, Steph.
You make it sound like therapy.
There's nobody else here. It's just the three of us.
Just us, yeah.
Anything to get off your chest?
No, not particularly. I mean, on Rodri in that first. So here's the thing: the game kicks off, and I've got all sorts of other things going on as well, with the fans giving it back and forth. What did Havertz leave on Rodri? Did Havertz see him blocking and go for it, or was it just a...
He shouldered him.
Rodri shouldered Havertz?
No, Rodri stood into Havertz's path. Deliberately,
So
Rodri instigated the contact, and Havertz delivered a nice shoulder. But Rodri went down feeling his face. Rodri was completely play acting.
Yeah.
It was doing it exclusively to get Havertz sent off.
Well,
but the cameras showed nothing. There was no raised... Gary Neville really irritated me on commentary, because he kept talking about like a raised arm, like he'd seen a replay before we'd seen it, and I got a little bit worried. But Havertz was completely nonplussed when the camera was on him. He knew he'd done nothing to warrant... So it was like... Obviously, it was a sign of what was to come, but it was Rodri thinking he could do something, and Havertz demonstrating quite clearly that it wasn't going to work, and it was lovely.
Well, isn't karma a bitch then? Because Rodri now, the reports are that he's going to have a long
be nice
out.
Be nice.
I'm talking about karma.
Yeah.
Look, ultimately, and the other thing is, I did think about coming on and sharing lots of other people's words, because other people in the 24 hours since have been way more eloquent than I have. And Clive on the Arsenal Vision podcast said, City tried to bully us and we didn't let them.
They got bullied back.
2 or 3 of those players, the Man City players, lost their heads.
Yep.
And to me, the thing that makes me laugh, and I was thinking this yesterday to myself, they didn't care about us 2 or 3 years ago. You know, when they're beating us 5-0 and the
Xhaka gets sent off and we roll over,
sent off. And even when they're giving us the runaround when we are vying for the title, but late on in the season, you know, they're running rings round Holding and blah, blah, blah. 4 games now. 4 games where we've had the measure of them.
They've not beaten us.
They've not beaten us. A couple of games, Haaland, blank. You know, we've stood up to them, and we're living rent-free in their heads for the time being. Ultimately, because they are so far and away above in their own little ivory tower of success that they're in at the moment, that's hopefully built on sand and will come crumbling down in time. But ultimately, we're standing up to them, and they need a rival. They need some motivation, because the fan base there at the Etihad, as much as they crow and give it the big un about 3 in a row, 4 in a row, European champions, blah, 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 they're also probably pretty bored, because, you know, it's not a real test. You know, where's their joy in really, you know, it's not like the days of Aguero and David Silva, where they're getting one over on Man United, and a Chelsea that kind of come up and down, or a Liverpool that then put in the run-ins. They need a rival to sort of feed off, because the rest of the Premier League is basically Like,
well, this I've written this down. This did have echoes of United Arsenal rivalry from way back when, I must admit, and I knew that because my response after the final whistle was, I can't wait to get these buggers back to the Emirates. And that's how I felt after every game at Old Trafford. It's like, right, because there was always some injustice. And it's funny, Orbinho put out a tweet not long ago, and I'll read it word for word. On the 21st of September 2003, a draw in Manchester against the reigning champions amidst controversy and a sense of injustice at the actions of a cowardly opposition striker, Van Nistelrooy, inspired Arsenal's last title triumph. Let's hope Arsenal use Sunday as inspiration in the same way. And I like that. I didn't realise it was pretty much the same weekend in the season. Amazing. But it's obviously nice. the Martin Keown, where the bully got bullied.
Yeah.
And we took it. We took them on and beat them ultimately.
There's another little parallel there that reminds me of when the rivalry between us, when United were that much better, unfortunately, that Ferguson started being nice to Wenger.
Didn't like that at all.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Because it made us irrelevant, really. It was a case of, poor Arsenal, And that hurt, that really hurt. And what we're seeing now is a kind of reverse, in that Pep would give us all the sort of platitudes of, you can see what Mikel is doing is very good, very, very good. And all that a few seasons ago when they were thumping us 4 and 5-0. Now he doesn't like it. Now he's kicking his chair around the stadium.
In fairness, I think he's been quite gracious still. His post-match saying Arsenal were very, very good. The rivalry is happening on the pitch.
The players.
The two managers are friends, and that they will Arteta will never say an ill word against Guardiola. He just won't do it. And fair enough. But on the pitch, there's a real, they are rattled. There's no question. Yes. I mean, the video doing the rounds today of Haaland going up to a 17-year-old and saying, "Who are you?" and stay humble. And this is after he's like lobbed a ball into the back of Gabriel's head, and like he's gone. His head is gone. And Bernardo Silva, talking about they've not won anything. It's like, this is like, bring it on, keep going, show us how much we've got right inside you. We're the better team at the moment. Like not in track record, but in the head-to-heads, as you've said, 4 games and they've not beaten us.
Sorry, there's too much for me to sort of go in on there, but I don't even know what to sort of pick up first. Picking up in terms of like our fluctuation when we were competing with United and then falling out of it as well. There's another narrative. All this stuff about the dark arts and some of the more negative parts of our play, in inverted commas, yesterday. Again, in the same way that I think we are refereed differently, we're also reported on differently. Because a few seasons ago, when Arsenal had a soft underbelly and didn't like it up them, we were seen as weak and pathetic. And now, when we're showing a bit of grit and a bit of steel and a kind of win at all costs attitude, all of a sudden, that's not the right thing to do. Is that the right way to... Go away. Like, who cares? No one goes to City and win. Ipswich score in the first minute, everyone just goes, too early, you've just annoyed him now. Brentford do the same. Other clubs maybe take it to him. The fact that Tottenham are probably City's bogey side tells you everything you need to know. Because there is a team that are really flawed. Other teams are better than Tottenham, and yet it only seems to be us and a couple of other teams that really give it a go. Everyone else is going there with damage limitations. They can be got at. They are not calling out 17-year-olds and saying stay humble to the manager of the opposition to teams in Europe. It's like they're having, for some reason, this thing is manufactured from within themselves because they don't like the fact that we are standing up to them because they're petty. Look, I'm sure it drives them as well, and it will motivate them to be better and do better, and they'll be looking forward to coming to our place. But tough, like, have some class. That was the thing. I mean, it was bad enough. I felt like the whole of Manchester City Football Club, there was a moment's applause for someone who's like a lifetime director at the start. That was the only moment of class in the whole experience that I had yesterday. They're in a soulless council house of a stadium that they commandeered following the Commonwealth Games. Okay, they've built a soulless area around their part of Manchester after taking it away from Main Road. They've got a soulless manager who plays this possession-based a death by 1,000 cuts football, and they assemble a bunch of cold, robotic, like, I don't know, spoilt brats footballers who don't like it whichever way it's served to them, and who then spit their dummy out at the end when they're celebrating a draw against 10 men after 45 minutes, throwing the ball at us in their petulant ways. There's absolutely zero class about that club. The Premier League will
Stef,
do well.
Rather than sit on the fence, tell us what you think about City.
The Premier League, will do really well to absolutely throw the book at them in this court case for two reasons. One, because it's probably the right thing to do. I mean, Everton and Forest with their one or two charges, 115 is, I mean, come on. Smoke, fire, all that kind of stuff. Let alone the fact, also, City's relentlessness through this ridiculously expensively assembled kind of like behemoth that they've got, it's really boring to watch. The Premier League is better when there's more competition, and there just isn't. And even when we are trying to compete, it's not a level playing field off the field. It certainly doesn't feel like a level playing field on it. Not that I'm going to try and resist going down that route as much as I can. And so just something needs to change, because they're just making the Premier League a horrible watch. Sorry.
And the Premier League have got to be aware of that. It's we ridiculed, Germany, Bayern Munich, France, PSG, Scotland, Celtic, and here we are. Yeah, or worse even. Who won the league in Germany last season? It wasn't Bayern Munich. So at least although normal service seems to resume now so far. Chris.
Yes.
Sorry.
Should we get into the game?
Yeah, let's get into the game. First 15, 20 minutes. I mean, you two boys predicted a draw pre-game. I said we'd win. And I firmly believe that because of what happened in the first half, had we remained or retained our 11 players, we would have won the game. I think that's quite probable, but obviously we'll never know. First 15, 20 minutes, though, I was bloody concerned. They totally dominated us. We were doing very well to hang in there. My fears about Savinho and Doku were being realised. I would have taken a draw at that point, even in the first 8 minutes. And then Haaland scored 1-0. I'm fearing the worst. I'm fearing a 2, a 3. They hit the post with a free kick. Gundogan, before Haaland's goal, he had a little flick over the defender, and the volley was weak. The volley was poor, went wide when he really should have hit the target at the very least, but probably even scored. It wasn't looking good. How Chris, you were watching it. How were you feeling after 20 minutes? This is pre-Rodri injury.
Yeah. I was very concerned. Actually, Calafiori, who recovered well, but for the goal, he got touched tight to Savinho, who just span him like a top and slotted that ball through. I thought the centre halves were bisected a bit too easily. I think there was just a bit of confusion. As soon as he turned Calafiori, basically, I think we went into a bit of and shuffled over and left that gap for Haaland, and who basically mishit it and scored. And then when we got to the free kick hitting the post, I was starting to fear we were going to get hammered.
Garden gnome time.
Yeah,
well, just I was kind of frozen, to be honest. I was just sort of watching, sort of frozen until the 20th minute.
What was it like in the ground? Were you concerned?
Yeah, of course. And my feeling was, I wondered if we'd looked at some of City's recent performances, the Ipswich early goal, the Brentford early goal, and we'd maybe tried to see if we could catch them cold, which may explain the Rodri block in the first minute to try and stop Havertz. And so therefore, I just felt like we were a bit too open to begin with. And then, look, they take the lead, and, you know, my pessimistic head starts to doom spiral and think, okay, where's this going? We've made these changes. That planted a little seed. As much as we rate Timber and Calafiori, just, you know, any change, and it's realms of the unknown. And although we had those scares, we then recovered. And I don't know, City changed. Look, personnel changes are going to affect anyone, but you mentioned the Rodri injury.
Well, it was a game-changing incident. Yeah,
he's the linchpin, isn't he? And I can't stand the guy. I think he's another petulant sod as well, who, like, as you say, will try and initiate things to try and get his fellow player sent off. He's full of the dark arts about his play. He's a wonderful footballer.
He's probably the best. Well, he's definitely the best in the midfield.
In his position, he's the best in the world. I get that, but he has a dark side. You know, all the best footballers do. Look at Maradona. You know, it's what some players sort of have. So him going off, it did change the dynamic of what City were doing, and I have to say, as I'm sort of with you, that second half of the first half, we were the better side.
Oh yeah,
we were the better side. We are better than them, and we're without our captain Odegaard, new signing Marino, who's supposed to be in essentially the Rice position, so Rice can be in Partey's position. So we're missing key vital players as well. You know, it's not like, you know, City can crow and whinge and cry about that as well. We had players missing, and so who knows what would have happened. But we started to exert our strength and our physicality. We're not getting bullied by this team. They're not going to bully us at all. We're going to stand toe to toe with them, let them lose their heads, and played an absolute blinder with some of our play.
Well, the first goal, I think 21 minutes was the Rodri injury, 22 minutes we equalised, and you've got to doff your cap to Partey for the quick free kick. That was fantastic. Martinelli, I thought, had a good game. Well, I thought everybody had a good game. He did well, took him on, ran to the byline or thereabouts and cut it back. But hands up if you thought Calafiori was going to do that. With that angle, hitting the ball with the inside of his foot.
Yeah,
I'm like...
See, I'm a lefty and, you know, obviously don't play at this level. May surprise you. But when the way he's shaped... Well, I just thought, that's the way I would clip it in as a cross.
Yes.
The body shape, everything. And it was. He sort of clipped it, but with a bit of pace, and the way it whipped away from the keeper. Just stunning.
Just ridiculous goal. Like, welcome to Arsenal. Welcome
amazing.
to the Premier League.
Yeah. Nice way to open your account on your debut.
And, okay, yes, we're going to talk about Michael Oliver, Stef.
Look, before we get to the negative stuff about referees,
this is... Okay.
The away end celebration when Calafiori scored that goal was absolutely mega. Like, we lost it. Because I'd sort of said to the people I was with that, you know, what a game to throw Calafiori his first start. It did feel like, and then obviously the way the goal sort of unfolded, you know, we could see he let Savinho sort of spin. So we just thought, I wonder if he's going to be, and then bang, a welcome. It's absolutely just incredible, and it just lifted everyone. It was like we were remembering who exactly we were, and we were going to take the game to them. And like you say, even the build-up, Partey's quick free kick, Martinelli taking people on. We're loving Martinelli's work rate. We're desperate for him to score, of course, but that's an assist. That's a start.
Yeah,
and his just work rate is brilliant. There are a couple of times, I know we're going to talk about being down to 10 men. I did wonder if he could have been the outlet a bit more, but there was two things. One, he's clearly under instruction to stay in that shape, and after a while he was just knackered, absolutely knackered.
I complained when we went down to 10 men against Brighton that we sat back and were defensive. I have zero complaint about how we set up for that second half yesterday.
Not against City, no.
Exactly.
Yeah,
the
and
context.
we were winning. We had something to
hold on to.
Yes.
Martinelli also set up Trossard from a similar position with the shot as well. So he was effective.
Yeah.
With 11v11, Martinelli was effective.
Yeah.
Back to 1-1. City had a complaint with Oliver that he called Saka and Walker over, and you can see Walker complaining to him afterwards. I was out of position, and he was. And I if that was me, I'd have an issue with Michael Oliver doing that to my team as well. Steph, you're desperate to get in here.
Michael Oliver did not referee the game well at all. That, in terms of the logistics of the game, look, if the referee wants to get involved and speak to the captains, I'm all for that. If it's about controlling the temperature of the game, it's something I talk about loads. Okay, so he's talking to the captain saying, look, this, that and the other. But like you say, he also has to recognise he's drawn the player out of position, that there needs to be some kind of reset. And like you say, if it's happened to us, you're so annoyed at that. And that was the funny thing coming away from the game. I don't think either side was particularly happy with the refereeing, because City also didn't like the fact that they thought he let us get away with time wasting, in inverted commas. But ultimately, that was an error in the same way I think there were some other errors in the game as well.
But did you hear the statistic? Man City apparently contacted Sky contacted Opta after the game to ask them how many minutes the ball was in play in that second half, and it was 35, which is the highest amount of minutes it's been in play in any half in any game since the start of last season. So it was
right.
It wasn't actually true.
That brings me to another point. Let's talk about delaying restarts, shall we? And the time when the ball is not in play. It's an absolute nonsense. It's not. No one was thinking about this.
Well, that's my point.
You said
this wasn't an issue.
You're absolutely right.
This was never an issue last season. So why is it? Well, no, stop. Let's not.
Okay.
There's a couple of things to get to before we get to the Trossard incident. Gabriel had. I mean, can we just acknowledge Saka's delivery on those two corners was just sublime. Mm-hmm. Now, what's not clear, and nobody said it, but you could see it clearly if you rewatch it. The first incident, had Gabriel's header gone in, it would have been disallowed. Michael Oliver pointed to the whistle to the Man City players and said foul. And it was for Martinelli blocking Ederson. Bizarrely, 7-8 minutes later, Martinelli did exactly the same thing with the exact same impact, and the goal stood. And the goal should have stood. Just again, Martinelli's allowed to stand there. He let Ederson get out of his way, go around him, but he can stand there. And again, it was lovely to see the blocking, and I love the fact that after the first incident, Guardiola didn't like Doku's defending, so he put Walker touch tight to Gabriel, who did this bizarre kind of kept touch. He was
playing it or tag.
Yeah, and Gabriel just looked at him, and the look he gave him was like, "What do you think you're going to do? I'm getting this. You're not stopping me. If this ball is delivered, you can see it. If this ball is delivered, I'm getting my head on it. You're not going to stop me." And I always find it odd that, City zonal mark. So their big players are marking zonally. The smaller guys, so Walker, they man mark on the edge of the box. But surely you'd put your biggest, best header of a ball against Gabriel because he is the threat. Okay, we've got other threats from set pieces, but Gabriel's goal scoring record is phenomenal from centre back.
I'm pretty sure on the radio as we were travelling back, there was a stat that said something along the lines of, since Ten Hag has been at United, Gabriel has scored more goals from corners than Man United in the Premier League.
I'm all here for any anti-Man United stats.
Leave that one for you.
Yeah, no, that's good. I welcome that. I'll embrace that. So look, if it was limbs in the away end at 1-1, the commentator said there was a bit of a delayed reaction between Gabriel's the ball hitting the back of the net and the away fans realising it had actually gone in? Was that?
I mean, that's probably just like a view
distance
thing, and a distance thing, because it's such a melee. You look across the pitch and there's just bodies everywhere, and who knows? And I believe there was a VAR check for that, wasn't there?
Yeah,
and a bit of a delay. But even like when it initially happened, but what, like you say, when it does, everyone's up in their seats and it's just people hugging, and we're just in dreamland at that point, because we're so. It's not just the goal. The goal obviously is the moment of explosion. But it's because we're in the ascendancy. It's because we're starting to dominate. It's because they're on the back foot and they're a bit rattled, and we're in this, and we're really good. We are really, really, really good.
Okay, right. So I'm going to have my little piece on Trossard, and then Steph, you can have a little break, because then Chris can come in, and then you can take it away. All of those things you've just said, absolutely. We were in the ascendancy. We were 2-1 up. City without De Bruyne. City without Rodri. You're thinking, do you know what? We're starting to control the game. The 2 goals are recognition of that. No longer are City dominating us. We're 7 minutes of stoppage time, which was fair enough because there was 2.5 minutes for the VAR check for Havertz, and then there was the injury to Rodri, and there were 3 goals. So that's fine. And the VAR, so no issue with the amount of time added on. Within the context, I don't care that Doku should have been booked beforehand. I don't care. I think it's important, but I don't care that he did that because of what happened to us against Brighton. We know, painful experience, kicking the ball away will probably elicit a yellow card.
If you play for Arsenal.
If you... I wrote that in the WhatsApp group that, we may be ref differently to other teams. I get that. But I still don't care because we know that. It's not, that's still not important. If you are already on a yellow card, then you do not do what Trossard did. He is an absolute idiot for doing that. And that is his fault. I'm not going to condone that. I have issues. It should never have been a yellow. Having said that, the way he did it, it was almost a yellow card for kicking the ball away last season. And his barge on Silva was
that's what I was going to say.
Was dangerous as well on a yellow card. And then he booted the ball. I don't care. I've heard some Arsenal fans say, I've heard Arsenal fans say 2 things. One, that he was halfway between trying to kick the ball to Martinelli in space, number 1, and 2, that he thought the whistle had gone for half time, so he then just kicked it away. Utter nonsense. Look at his face. He knew what he was doing. And Oliver, and from the moment that Walker approached Michael Oliver after the Arsenal equaliser and quite calmly said to him, I was out of position because of you, I was concerned that Oliver would do something to try and compensate for that kind of erring against City. Remind me, Mark Goldbridge does a brilliant takedown on Michael Oliver and why he should never referee another Manchester City game, and it's true. There's a catalogue of incidents where he's made decisions that have been really beneficial to Manchester City and ultimately decided titles, i.e. last season, penalty Liverpool. But anyway, I was concerned at that point, and you do not give Oliver, any referee, a decision to make. It's simple as that. Keep your head. It was the most unnecessary decision Trossard took, and I was cross. In the moment, I was cross. As soon as he did it, I said, "What are you doing?" Instantly.
And we said the same when the Rice incident happened.
Yes.
You turn around to me, and I agree.
Opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. It's a stupid thing to do, and it's especially galling because when Arteta took over, we still had those moments. We mentioned the Xhaka tackle at City a while ago, but then there was a spell where we tidied all that up a bit, and we had at least a year, maybe even more, no red cards, and all of a sudden they've come back. They are petty as you like. And there's all this letter of the law stuff, which Red Action Group put out a tweet. I think it's from about 2017 or something ridiculous, but they retweet it to themselves every time this happens. That whenever anyone mentions the phrase letter of the law, it's usually following some absolute nonsense. So it's not necessarily wrong. And I think we also need to reach a point where both of these things are true. You are absolutely right. Trossard is an idiot. Because when it happened, we all initially thought, or I certainly did in the away end, that it was for the barge. Like, it was a stupid tackle. It wasn't really for the ball.
His blood was up. You could tell
it was
blood was up.
potentially dangerous
exactly.
as well.
And this is why I wonder if Oliver had said, oh yeah, the second yellow was for the barge, everyone would go, yeah. But because he said it's kicking the ball away, you can get into the fact that one incident of kicking the ball away doesn't apparently equate to the same or similar incident of kicking the ball away. And then there's all the other stuff. I mean, I'm off now. I'm going to say it.
I'd just jump in and say
Go on,
that
Chris.
I think just macro a bit and say that the rule itself is just diabolical.
They've created this out of
it's
nothing.
a monster. They've created a monster because it's so hard to implement. On one hand, we're calling for consistency, and then the other hand, we're asking for common sense to be applied. And you can argue that both are kind of correct in terms of how it plays out. But the interesting thing is, and the irony is, last year when Michael Oliver was reffing the game with Kovacic going in twice, his reasoning for not giving the second yellow was to say, I didn't want to spoil the game.
No, sorry, just to correct you. It wasn't Oliver's words themselves. It was
the PGMO
Howard Webb
on
that stupid Sky Sports ref watch program.
Propaganda
it's basically, so he's being Michael Oliver's mouthpiece in a way.
Well,
he?
he's the guy in charge.
Right. So same deal for me. That's the same thing in terms of what was said as a kind of justification. So if we're applying that to this bullshit rule of kicking the ball away, where you like with the Rice one particularly, how egregious is it? How read the temperature of the game, what advantage would the other team have had? All that seems to go out the window. You touched it, 3 millimeters, you're off. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So that's where we're at. I just think it's the rule itself just is a nonsense.
And let's face it, what should any laws in football be for? Ensuring player safety, fairness of the contest, and that's probably about it, really. Kovacic's tackles on Odegaard last season endangered the player.
Yeah.
So they both needed to be yellow cards.
Can I just say that there's already something in place to mitigate against kicking the ball away, and that's adding time on at the end of the game.
Well, this is the other thing. Following the Qatar World Cup, where they basically said, look, ball's out of play.
11 minutes extra time.
We're adding it on. Even if that's 10, 15 minutes, don't care. It's your game, sort it out, speed it up. And everyone seemed fine with that. Now that's gone away. They're trying to claw back these millimetres of time milliseconds. Well,
are they worried that their paymasters, with Sky and the likes, are saying we need the game to flow more? We can't afford these little breaks. Is that what's driving it?
Or do you think they're actually quite pleased because Arsenal are a massive fan base and these are controversial, so these are talking points, clickbait, so on. So actually they're probably sitting back in their ivory towers thinking, great, this is publicity, no such thing as bad PR.
I think you give them too much credit with that.
No, I'm sure. And that's not a lot.
Forget that, yeah, all right. In terms of the TV product, they want the game to flow more and blah, blah, blah. From the moment the whistle blew to kick the game off, that game did not flow. What's the first thing that happened? Rodri
2.5 minute VAR.
Rodri tries to block Havertz, and there's a coming together. The game is stopped. It's not even started. City were trying to spoil, and then because the game has stop-start elsewhere with various decisions, and then we're down a man, then we're trying to time waste. That was not... And everyone who's been saying that that's a brilliant game, they don't mean that. What they mean is that was a brilliant event to watch. Because as a neutral, I'd be loving that. I remember laughing my head off watching Tottenham versus Chelsea at the Battle of the Bridge when Tottenham basically lost the title to Leicester. I was wetting myself. It's one of the worst games of football I've ever seen because it wasn't a game of football. It was a referee who had no control against players who hated
kicking
each
lumps
other,
out of each
kicking
other,
lumps out of each other. That's what was yesterday. They weren't the two best teams in the country playing a game of football and a contest against each other. It was two teams, one team trying to rough the other one up, the other one trying to basically stand up to them, and a ref in the middle trying to mitigate with bureaucracy that just spoiled the whole affair. That was not an enjoyable game. I spent the whole of the second half just shaking my head, saying this game has been ruined. Just, it's not a football match anymore. I'm not enjoying it. And not enjoying it from... Look, I enjoyed our defending. I enjoyed the fact we said, right, take some pot shots. We don't care. Like, you're actually not inventing anything. City were clueless. They didn't know what to do because we were on it and we were organised. And it was purely through sheer volume of, like, you know, events in our penalty box that they eventually had one ricochet.
Lucky. They got lucky.
They got lucky.
Raya nearly saved it.
They got absolutely lucky. Our man of the match, Raya, saved it again. What a player he is. His handling was brilliant. And it was just amazing.
They deserve a hell of a lot of credit for not giving away any set pieces around the box either, you know, where they could have dived in. You know, it was the amount of times you saw Partey going to make a challenge and then kind of pulling back and getting back into shape, and they just marshalled it superbly.
Can we just acknowledge Arteta's half-time team talk, because it must have been, you know, to completely change tactics in 15 minutes off the cuff, because the Trossard red card, he had no thinking time between the red card and half-time, that to set us up in such a disciplined fashion. I mean, I wonder, did they talk about what they would do if they went down to 10 men, and so they had a plan in place, and right, we're going to implement this plan F or whatever it is. Because it was just, I mean, Match of the Day 2 did a really good analysis on how we set out in the second half, and it was perfect.
Yeah,
it was, and we restricted City to their pot shots, and when Rodri's not on the field, maybe that might have been more of a dangerous tactic with him still playing, because he's very good from distance. But without him on the field, without De Bruyne on the field, if their centre-backs taking these pot shots, well, fine, carry on.
Yeah,
you know?
But that yeah, right, that half-time team talk, not just the tactics, but what he instilled in them in terms of belief and, you know, that the discipline, but yeah, the courage to go out there. It kind of reminds me of, you know, Henry V before Agincourt, you know, outnumbered.
We few, we happy few, we band of brothers.
Yeah, that kind of a stirring speech with, you know, fogging his standards underpinning it all. Yeah, to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, shame no documentary cameras in there for that.
Yeah. And he took Saka off. And loads of people would have said, you know, he's your star player. He's your
took him
outball.
off because he went off with cramp at the Spurs game and then started the Thursday game. Should have been rested.
Hey, look, and there's the other thing, right? We also need to step back. There's probably more incidents in the second half we want to cover. But to come away from this week, you know,
it's incredible.
Spurs away, Atalanta away in the Champions League, and then City away. 2 draws, 1 victory. One of the draws against City with a man down for half the game. With
1 less day for recovery, an away game in Europe. Yeah. They're at home. You know, it's phenomenal. This week has cemented us as, you know, fifth. It's nip and tuck between us and City. Now, obviously, we have to go and then win our so-called easier games and reinforce. But I have confidence that we'll do that. I just think the mentality of this team is different. This is a different beast. We will beat Leicester. We will beat Southampton. And then nice City are away at Newcastle on Saturday morning at 12:30, so we'll know at kick-off time in our game what the story is there. And I think other teams will look at us and be beaten in the tunnel, especially if we get that mascot back from the Spurs game.
He, by the way, he needs to be the mascot when Man City come back to the Emirates. Yeah. Just him.
Yeah, Arteta, make it happen.
Stay humble.
So some of the stats in that second half, we had 12.5% possession. City had 28 shots, which the only game they've had more shots in one half of football is the Aguero goal game at home to Queen's Park Rangers. but their XG was 1.5 from that second half. We limited them to ineffective shots. They got lucky with a ricochet in the box and lucky with a finish, and
then celebrated a draw like they'd won the European Cup.
That's fantastic. I thought Rodri said they would never do that. That's not their mentality.
Yeah, the mentality is to go for the win, isn't it?
Yeah. They didn't play to win. They played to draw. And they celebrated it as such.
Chasing the game.
Can we notable mention for our goalkeeper, who again was just superb.
Well, his handling.
Just calm.
Everything. I mean, that to have a keeper like that from the beginning of a game, making a few saves and just calming everyone, as he did at Spurs, it just makes such a huge difference.
Well, you're not waiting for a mistake. It's incredibly I don't think he's got confidence. I don't think he's got a rick in him now. That's. Yeah. No, I've put the kibosh on him now, haven't I?
Well, but
he'll kick it in his own.
It's getting used. The defenders are the same. The player that we've probably questioned the most in this recent run is Partey. And even he stepped up yesterday. He was good. They're a really good side. And, not a perfect side, even with everyone fit and available, there are probably even more levels that we could go to, whether that's with a player in or with a slightly different system. We've all said about the volume of goals and those 5 games that we drew a blank in last season, but yeah, it's a non-shell pass.
Can we congratulate Miles Lewis-Skelly for getting booked before he made his Premier League appearance?
So there's a couple of things I want to ask about, as because I was in the ground, and obviously you get one shot, you're not getting close-ups, blah blah blah. Why was he booked? Because I've avoided all replays because I just wanted this conversation to be from in my head.
I genuinely don't know why he was booked. It was
just delaying coming on as a sub.
There was talk about
it was before that,
passing information on or to during one of the breaks, one of the little water breaks, that he was on the pitch talking to Raya about something. And this is just what I've heard.
What
is that he'd been
what? Another example of Arsenal players getting yellow cards that no one else ever does.
No.
And then the other incident was Jesus in the corner.
Yeah.
By the flag. What was that? What
happened there? I don't know.
Because it looked like the Man City player booted the corner ball at Jesus, and then Jesus got booked. Because he hadn't retreated even though he was on the floor.
I don't know.
I don't remember it.
Okay, so the one thing I want to also talk about is my favourite thing, where there was an incident where there was a defender down, with cramp. Okay, and basically David Raya has the ball at feet and wants the game to stop, but the ref's like, no, play on. So Raya goes to boot the ball out of play, but as the ball's in the air, the ref then blows the whistle to get the trainer on. Do you not remember that moment?
No.
Well, it was something about the fact that. Oh, that was it. The ball wasn't live. We had a corner. We had a free kick for offside or something like that. And basically, because the ball was dead and the player had cramp, Oliver wouldn't sort anything out then. So Raya took the free kick, and it's at that point that the whole thing. And this is the thing: you can't even remember. There was so much nonsense.
Yes.
It just wasn't a football match. It was this weird. I don't know what. Just
the second half, particularly, but the latter part of the first half was very enjoyable.
None of it was enjoyable.
Really?
Oh no!
It was horrible.
2 goals.
Come on. Will live with me.
Both goals.
Yeah, no. Look, yes, they're the moments, but the underlying feeling throughout the entire game was jeopardy, was trepidation, was fear, was doom and gloom staring at me any second now. Because at no point, I mean, if you'd offered me a draw at half time, in fairness, if you'd offered me a draw at any point in the game apart from those few moments between us taking the lead at 2-1 and Trossard's red card, they're the only moments in the game I wouldn't have accepted a draw, those 6 minutes.
About 30 seconds before the end, Holly.
No, true, but
I can only go on how I feel in terms of the way it unfolded. Look, I can rationalise in my brain that let's say City had got their equaliser on the 75th minute, and then we held out for the rest of it, I'd have felt much more buoyant and happy. Because it happens right at the end.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. Feels like a defeat.
It does it still feel like a defeat, because it feels less like a defeat as the days progressed. It definitely felt like a defeat last night, and when I woke up this morning, I thought, what's that feeling? Oh yeah, that's disappointment. I feel like we've lost the game.
Yeah.
But we haven't. But actually, as I've gone through the day and I've exposed myself to online people chatting and so on, and other supporters talking to their TikTok accounts, no, we and people said it at the time, that when the dust settles, Arsenal will look back on this as a real positive moment.
Yeah, but I constantly talk about what the head and the heart are doing. To me, are very different. You know, my emotion is the ending, the way they equalised, was absolutely heartbreaking. The sending off, for me, just put me in such a foul mood. And not because I just feel like it was the wrong decision, but it just spoiled the game. Because it just turned... It was such a good contest. You know, the way the first half had ended. And even generally, you know, City coming out the blocks and getting their goal. Because, you know, we were a little bit open and then we wrestled it back. That was the football match I wanted to see. Not what I saw in the second half. Look, I always want to see Arsenal, when adversity faces us, put in a shift like that. I'm so pleased with that character that we've got, and that steel, and that, you know, the cojones, to use Troy Deeney's phrase, that we've got is absolutely brilliant. But that's the head speaking. The heart was just annoyed at another game where officials had turned it into us basically having to batten down the hatches
with our help.
Yeah, and that's all true as well. Yeah, absolutely right. And yeah,
how do you, before you went to the game, like when we were talking on the pre-City podcast, you'd predicted a 0-0, and you said that you know, you're paying to go to a game all the way to Manchester, watch a game and not see a goal, and you'd feel somewhat cheated if you don't get to cheer a goal. Well, you had the opposite of what you feared.
Yeah, and like I say, if it was just the first half we were looking at, you know, even if we hadn't like taken the lead in the first half, that was the entertainment I was looking for. What unfolded, you know, at the red card and following that's just rubbish. It's everything I'm not enjoying about football at the moment.
Well, look, we've played 3 of our toughest 6 games. We've played away at 3 of the top 5 grounds from last season. And we're sitting on 7 points from those 3 games, which is 3 more than we got from those corresponding fixtures last season. So, I mean, look, yeah, I mean, we all allowed ourselves to imagine the league table with us sitting top on 13 points from 5 games, knowing that the only 2 points we dropped were because of an outrageous referee decision at home to Brighton. Now, that's why I'm not saying that Oliver's decision was outrageous. It wasn't, because within the context of what happened in the Brighton game, Trossard simply should have known better. There's no excuse for that. The rule is ridiculous. The what do you call it? Their decision to focus on this is just like nonsensical. It wasn't a problem, and now they've created one. And I wonder, are they concerned about that? But you know, who knows? The whole issue of Oliver refereeing Manchester City games. If you haven't listened to it, find Mark Goldbridge's takedown on that. He speaks complete sense. It's really good.
There's only 3 teams in the Premier League that Michael Oliver has refereed and not given a red card to. I think, off the top of my head, I did see the list, but one of them is definitely Norwich. The other one, I think, might be Watford and Manchester City. And because he's a Premier League ref, and because Watford and Norwich are not in the Premier League, he will have refereed Manchester City a lot more. Sorry. Look, we did brilliantly. And stepping back, trying to look at the landscape, we've got way more to be proud of than they have following that game. They were petulant. They lost their heads. With an extra man, they seemed to have no creativity. They couldn't even really build on the lead that they took because we wrestled control from them. They couldn't bully us. And then they ended up celebrating, snatching a draw in the 97th minute against 10 men, like they'd won the league. And that, to use a poker term, that's their tell. In poker, if someone's got a tell, you know when they're bluffing. Well, they proved with that reaction and their behaviour in that game that we're the ones that they fear. And that
absolutely.
is the biggest compliment we can play.
They are rattled.
They are rattled.
And that's what I'm taking from it, and that's why I can't wait to get them back at the Emirates in February.
It's going to
provided we win every game between now and then, obviously.
I think, regardless of what, it's going to be so spicy, so spicy.
And I mentioned it earlier, but they're away to Newcastle on Saturday lunchtime, and I know Newcastle haven't played particularly well, but that is still a difficult away ground to go to. City likely to be without De Bruyne, not 100%.
Definitely without Rodri.
Definitely without Rodri. And we know their record without him is not great.
Good.
Yes, absolutely. But also Newcastle have an entire week off. Their game in the League Cup at Wimbledon has been called off because of flooding, waterlogged pitch. So they'll be even more fired. Did Newcastle lose their last game?
Yes, to Fulham. Smith Rowe. Yeah. Another goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about going to Craven Cottage as an Arsenal team.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Putney Bridge, that is. Did you because you mentioned it? Did you see the Wimbledon pitch? I mean, it's like a river has gone underneath it and collapsed the pitch, so it literally looks like sand traps on a golf course.
No,
because there was so much rain apparently that there was. It wasn't exactly a sinkhole, but essentially things because these football pitches are now kind of on a bed of sand, and then and anyway, I mean it looked bad, really bad.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
But yeah, come on, Newcastle. We're all Geordie fans on 12:30. In fact, I'm going to support every team that ever play Manchester City.
But isn't that always the case? Hasn't that been the case for a couple of seasons?
Now. Well, yeah, of course. But and ultimately, to the point that I'm going to be more active, shall I say, in my support of other teams. Because before, it was so benign and they're so boring and relentless that I just didn't care, whatever, City winning, yeah, of course. But
they've now gone 2 games without winning.
Good. There you go. Long may it continue.
I know they've got a League Cup game at home, obviously. I don't know who it's against. I don't care.
Well, I mean, it could be someone that they're likely to face next season if they're demoted to League 2.
Yes.
Rodri should be back in time for their opener against Harrogate.
Yay!
I can't take credit for that. A friend of mine, Ollie, in a WhatsApp group that I'm in, came up with that one. I thought it was very funny.
Right, listen. Anything else?
Oh, good luck to the reserves against Bolton on Wednesday.
Oh, yes. And Arsenal women also had a 2-2 draw against Man City on Sunday under slightly different circumstances, but, a 2-2 draw.
The Mead household will be an interesting one.
Yes, they got a goal each. Yeah. Right. Okay, good luck to Arsenal women on Thursday. They 1-0 down, trying to overturn a 1-0 deficit at home to Häcken in the last qualification game ahead of the Champions League group stages. Right. Be positive. I think, that was a bit of a gut punch, that goal in the 98th minute. However, dust has settled. The glow is starting. I'm feeling good. I think Leicester will be put to the sword. I think we'll kick on. We'll get some players back. All our key players will have a nice rest during the week. We haven't done our Bolton lineups because we don't know enough about the Arsenal reserves to do that probably. And I hope none of the players I hope none of the players who started against City start against Bolton. That's all I care about. And we'll be back for a pre-Leicester podcast on probably Thursday, and we'll have a look back at the Bolton game as well. In the meantime, thank you very much for chats and for watching. This one's going out on YouTube. Hello. See you next time. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app, and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at North Bank Pod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by The Podcast Company.
Well.
And breathe.